All right, everybody, we are back with podcasting yet again. I'm gonna move this real quick. And is it the Hazardous Intent podcast? No, because I'm by myself. But don't let that discourage you. Today we are going to be reviewing Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. So obviously I'll do a spoiler-free review. Won't talk about too much stuff that happens at the end. And then we will get on to more spoiler and specific reviews. This shouldn't be too long. There's not going to be any video with it. So it's not going to be too spectacular. But go ahead and listen along anyways. And after the fact, tell me your opinion of the movie. So just to get off to a good start, Shang-Chi was a great movie. I will say that I also will put a disclaimer that I will be using it interchangeably just to give my brain a break, because when I'm not paying attention I do refer to it as Shang-Chi, but it is said in the movie, he says it himself, that his name is Shang-Chi. Anyway, so it's a pretty good movie. I really enjoyed it. It's definitely a very triumphant return for Marvel, and I say return meaning return because Black Widow wasn't amazing. Obviously, it did well in terms of numbers and everything like that, just because it was the first Marvel movie in a long time. But it had all this hype leading up to it since it got delayed so many times that I don't feel like it was really anything special. I mean, we had pretty much seen the entire movie at that point. We just didn't know some of the key aspects, but at the end of the day, it was pretty predictable. But Shang-Chi is definitely not predictable. And obviously we'll get into that later. So it's pretty much the vaguest things I can say about it are I feel like the characters are done really well. This is Aquafina's like best thing that I've seen her in. I've only seen her in this and Raya, the Last Dragon. But she's been doing really good. I feel like she was better in this than she was in Raya, just because she was able to like physically act. And I should probably actually look up real quick just what the guy who plays Shang-Chi's name is, because I know that this cast is made purely up of people that I don't know other than Aquafina. Oh god, I don't know how to say that name. His name is Simuliu. So it's like Simuliu or something like that. He's really good in this. Dude is a fucking beast when it comes to his choreography and stuff. Like when you watch that movie, like I was like blown away at how like incredible he was at some of the shit that he did. It was fucking ridiculous. And then his sister was a bit interesting. I'm not like damaging her performance, but it didn't feel like she did a lot. She definitely had like a little like a little side thing going on. But other than that, she's definitely gonna have a little bit more. They definitely have something coming for her in the future, and also we'll get to that later, obviously. But and then I don't know. I just really want to talk about the like big thing. I just feel like all the characters were done really well, and the choreography itself was like so fucking good. It like I watched it with a couple people I knew, Joe being one of them, and he was sitting right next to me. And like when fight scenes or any action scene was about to start, both of us like sat up in our seat. Like both of us literally like pushed ourselves up, because I'm kind of a sloucher. But when that fight scene was coming up, I had to sit up. I was like, "This is really going for it." Like it make like it's gonna make a lot of people start wanting to do like it's. I feel like it might possibly bring back the parkour train, which I know that didn't really go away, but I feel like it's gonna come back in full force because there's definitely some parkour in it. And so yeah, it's just a really good movie overall. Can't wait to be able to bring it home on disc and stuff like that. Definitely a lot better than Black Widow. So if I were to recommend one or the other, if you're someone who's like, I haven't really been paying attention to the MCU for a while, I know Black Widow is still in theaters. I think at the theater near me, or one of the two. There still might be Black Widow. I would recommend going to see Shang-Chi over Black Widow because I feel like it requires less also. Like, because Shang-Chi is such a new character, they don't, like, you don't need to know anything. It tells you all the information you need to know, and I've heard that it's a little too heavy on exposition, but I feel like the way they do it is so good that it really lets the characters emote, and, like, you get to start caring about these characters because you see them talking about their past in all these different ways. And it's also, like, a fairly relatable film, just in terms of, like, the way some of the characters act. Like, and again, I said Awkwafina is really good in this because she is, like, the out of the, like, 3 or 4 main characters, she's, like, the most disconnected from this world, obviously, and so she's still kind of, like, joking around and stuff, and she brings a very interesting comedic presence to the movie. But with that being said, let's get into some spoilers. All right, I'm gonna try and reformulate. I, like, just watched this, like I literally got out of watching it like 10 hours ago, less than 10 hours ago. So I don't know, I say just, but I it was in the middle of the night and I had to sleep because I didn't want to try and do this tired, obviously. So I think, actually, real quick, again, before we get into spoilers, if you are thinking of seeing this movie, even if you're not a Marvel fan, watch this movie. It's so good just for the choreography. If you're a big fan of martial arts films, watch this movie because the shots that they do in it and the choreography is stunning. So, if you're thinking of whether or not you want to watch this movie, definitely go watch it. You know, go to an early showing even just to get those cheaper tickets or something. But it's definitely a movie worth watching. Okay, so now we're going to go on to the spoiler review. So, we do get confirmation that Wenwu, aka the Mandarin, is like around 1,000 years old, and there's even a joke about it where, like, some old white-haired dude is, like, talking down to him, and he calls him a young man, which is funny because he's like, I lived like 10 of your lifetimes or something like that, which I think that was a really interesting joke. But it starts with a montage of the Mandarin conquering different areas. He just shows up and, like, wrecks shit and everything, and they talk about how he like conquers basically the entire world. And at one point in the movie he talks about the different, because we'll go ahead and just get this out of the way. They address the Mandarin from Iron Man 3 because they said that, like, while he was kind of just doing his own thing, somebody took the 10 rings to, like, some terrorist organization, like, adopted the 10 rings as a part of them, which is obviously what AIM did, or, that little faction of AIM with some extremist people. And he addresses that, and he goes, oh, and then they had to give a leader, and they chose a stupid name. They called him the Mandarin, like an idiot, and blah, blah, blah. And we even see Trevor Slattery a little bit. We might get to that later. But, and he was like, the Mandarin's stupid. And then he talks about all the names. And at one point they call him, he says something about being like Conqueror Khan. So I wonder if in this universe he was like some form of Genghis Khan, since Genghis Khan was known for, like, killing and ruling over a large part of the world in his time. Obviously, there's the whole thing of, like, how he raped a bunch of women and had children, so I don't think they're going to go with that route if that is the case. But other than that, it's he has all this power, and then it takes us to, like, mid to late 90s, and he goes looking for this ancient village of, like, Tao Lo, I think is what it's called. Oh no, it's Talo, if I remember correctly. And that's where they meet that's where he meets Shang-Chi's mother, because he's got the 10 rings, he's all powerful and everything. And he goes, and she's like, I'm not going to let you find this village. And she just mops the floor with him. Again, great choreography. It's very elegant. It's very dance-like, especially in this scene, because it's supposed to be them like falling in love. And it was like love at first sight sort of situation. So I think that scene was really well done. It was very majestic. Her movements, they were so fluid, especially with the powers that she had. And they fell in love, and it's kind of said throughout the whole movie, because I was kind of like, well, if he was this powerful, because they even said like, oh, he could have toppled like he ruled the world basically, and I was like, well, how come we didn't see any of that then? Because I feel like if he ruled the world, this would be a very different universe. And it's because after he met her, they had Shang-Chi and his sister. I think it's like Ling, I think is how it's pronounced, because yeah, it's ing. So and his sister Zhao Ling, so they had both of them, and essentially when Wu gave up conquering stuff, he quit being a conqueror for his wife, whose name I can't remember because I'm not sure if they actually say it. I assume they do at least once. But yeah, so he gives up that life and he raises a couple of kids with her, and then she dies, and so he goes back to being the Mandarin again and trying to rule the world. But obviously, some things have happened, so he's got to be a little bit more covert about it. And so that's kind of like the main backstory of him. And then there's one point where he after his wife dies, he trains Shang-Chi to be an assassin, and then sends him out to kill the person that killed his mom, which we kind of get back and forth about that event, because Shang-Chi is very he went through with killing the guy, but he's very upset about it, and he thinks that his mom would have been disappointed in him for it. So that's kind of the whole background of the situation. And then, but to the modern day, we have Shang-Chi and Katie is Awkwafina's character, and they are they're valet parkers. They Parkers. That's a weird thing to say, I feel because it sounds like Peter Parker. Well, because it's basically the same word. Anyway, so they park cars for a living and stuff like that. And there's a scene where they're talking to their friend who's got this serious life going on. She's a lawyer or whatever, and they talk about how she used to be crazy, and they talk about how they met and all this other stuff. And they had this very interesting familial relationship, and they get told they need to grow up and stuff, which is obviously oh, they're gonna go down a journey, because they're what's the rush to grow up? We just like to be happy, which is a good life motto in my opinion. If you can be happy and live a livable life, if you're not homeless and you're not sick, but you're still kind of spending your money recklessly and you're happy, fucking do it. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, a little theme over there, but yeah, we get a nice little scene with them dinking around, and they go singing, and they're all best friends and stuff like that. And then they're on a bus and then there's a little bit of foreshadowing. The thing I like about this movie is there's no real romantic subplot going on. There's some moments where Katie kind of seems like she's interested in Shang-Chi, but ultimately it's never really addressed. It's obvious that he cares about her, but he doesn't really say, oh, I care about her more than a friend or anything like that. So they obviously have this very tight relationship, which is just nice to see. Might evolve into a romantic subplot down the line, but in this movie there's only some very, very tiny hints of that being a possibility. But so they're on the bus, and that's when the bus scene happens, which is a very good scene. Probably, I'm just trying to think of all the fights. I'd say it's either the first or second best fight scene in this movie. And again, we get to see a lot of the Shang-Chi's actor. I just don't want to say his name because I will probably get it wrong. But we see a lot of his physical ability, which is really good. But they get on the bus, good scene. He explains to her everything that's going on, and she gets all kind of upset about it. And he's like, "I gotta go get my sister because blah blah blah." They're gonna go for her next because the Ten Rings attacked them. Obviously, is what I'm talking about. The bus fight scene is. And Katie says that she's gonna go along with him, and he's like, "No," and she's like, "This isn't an option," which I really like to see. That she was just like, she cares so much about him, and they've been together for such a long time that, they she wants to go, and he like tells a story about their past and everything. Then they go find his sister when she's running this like fighting ring, which is not in Madripoor. It's in an actual location, which I kind of knew from the beginning. I just know a lot of people were theorizing that it was Madripoor because it was like right after Falcon and Winter Soldier, so everyone was losing their shit about that. We see an extremist person. Like we see somebody like they're walking through and there's all these like boxed, like it's not really a cage match. It's like people literally in these glass rooms fighting each other, and one of them is an extremist soldier, which is very interesting that we have still some of those running around. So maybe they will come back yet again. And then we see the Wong versus Abomination fight, which is very interesting because of the fact that this isn't like a random fight. They did this on purpose because it's revealed that Wong apparently has gotten permission to take Abomination out of the raft to go fight. And so it shows their fight. Wong uses a sling ring to make Abomination knock himself out. And then it cuts to them and they're sitting there and Wong's like, "You need to like pull your punches a little bit. I'm just a guy." And then he opens a sling ring portal to what's obviously looks like a raft prison cell. There's like this big glass box in this like dark room. And Abomination like scuttles in there because he's so big, obviously. And they walk through together. So evidently Abomination's being allowed to do that, which is interesting as to what that could be leading to. Abomination also doesn't talk in this. But Wong appears in this scene exclusively for something that will happen later. But then Shang-Chi fights his sister, which is a pretty good fight. And we kind of get a little bit of her backstory, how their dad was teaching Shang-Chi and the guys, and she trained herself how to use this kind of cool rope, knife, dart weapon thing. I don't know what it's called. But if you see, when you watch the movie, you'll know what I'm talking about. But so they fight. Then the Ten Rings attacks them. They're going for these pendants or whatever. That's when the fight scene from the trailer with Shang-Chi fighting the Ten Rings on like rafters, basically on the outside of a building. That's what this scene is. And it's a really good fight. We get another moment where Katie is about to fall, and again, and Shang-Chi's like the entire length of the building away on those rafters, and he just fucking books it. He's just knocking people out, doing flips and shit. It's ridiculous how skilled this actor is, because I think he is like an actual martial artist and stuff, because I feel like when he got originally cast, I had seen some videos popping up of him doing parkour and stuff. But goddamn, this dude is a fucking animal. It's crazy. Anyway, so there's that whole scene, and he fights Death Dealer a little bit, and we've seen like with some of the flashbacks, he fucking hates Death Dealer just because of how much Death Dealer like beat him like while training him. And he goes to finish him off, and then his dad's there, and then we get the whole, "Oh, I told my men that they wouldn't be able to kill you. Glad to see I was right." And he reveals the whole thing with, he's been hearing their mother, and he's going to go save them. And they're like, "Well, what if they don't let you save her?" And Wenwu's like, "Well, then I'll fucking kill everybody." And Shang-Chi's like, I don't think you should do that. I'm not a fan of that. And so they break out. They meet Trevor Slattery, um, and he and as I predicted, I never officially said it anywhere, so I'm fine with just being like, it, I'll say that I didn't predict it, just because I don't have any recording of me doing it. But I did. I was talking to Joe off mic, and I said like, because for those who didn't know, he appeared at the red carpet screening, and people are like, "What the hell does that mean?" And I talked to Joe about it, and I was like, "I think this means he's going to be like a court jester because he was just a big goofball in the first one." So I think that's what the situation is, and that's what happened. They find him, and he said that they were there and they were getting ready to execute him, and he started breaking out into like a Shakespearean sonnet or something like that. And they just found it really funny for some reason, so he's been doing weekly gigs entertaining them. And then we meet this weird fluffy thing. It's like this cute weird little thing, and I can't think of what it was called. It was like Mingus or Namus, something like that. Uh, and but he's able to communicate for it, and that thing is like from their mother's village, and he's like, "Hey, you load me up into a car, I can guide you there," because like it's guarded by this bamboo forest that moves. It's a moving maze, is what they say. Like literally in the movie, they call it a moving maze, and when you see it, that's what it is. Anyway, they go through it. They meet the ancient village of Talau, Talo, I don't know, and they go in there and talk with the their people, and they're like, "Hey, our father's coming. He's gonna ruin your shit." Katie gets trained on how to use a bow and arrow, and this is important later. All of their weapons are made of like dragon scales, like literally they have like shields that are giant dragon scales. Their arrows are tipped with dragon scale magic. Their swords and other blades are dragon scales, and it's really cool because it has this nice red glowing effect. But and it's revealed, like they talk to their aunt is who is at the village, and her name happens to be I'm just gonna say Nan because that's the last part of her name. But the first part is Jiang, and I want to say Jiang Nan, but because I am not a native speaker, I am not going to attempt to do proper pronunciation, so I'm just going to call her Nun. Or I can't remember. Someone might, I don't think anybody calls her Auntie. I was going to say someone calls her Auntie, but that's a very Black Panther thing, so I don't think that's the case. Anyway, Nan reveals that he's actually been hearing whispers of these demons that are trapped behind this door. And and it goes to this ancient history of like how the ancient city of Talo was very Wakandan looking, because we even see it physically. It's like, oh, we had like great skyscrapers and all this other shit. And then these like literally soul sucking demons, like came in and just destroyed everything. And then this dragon known as the Great Protector came and saved them, and then gifted them with his scales and stuff, because those are the only things that can kill these things. And so they get ready for this fight. Wenwu shows up. Big battle happens. Shang-Chi even fights him. Death Dealer is running around fighting Nan, which is very interesting. And I just really like the choreography of the Talo people, because they're very like in tune with nature is essentially how to describe their abilities. But they're very cool. I enjoy it very much. 10 out of 10. But So, and then we have Razor Fist, who is there throughout the entire movie. He shows up and attempts to like Wenwu's like, I'm gonna go to this gate, because they're like, these soul suckers are locked behind this gate, and he's like, I'm gonna go to this gate, I'm gonna free my wife, and everyone else is like, no, they're soul suckers, don't do it. And Xialing fights Razor Fist, which is a good fight and stuff like that, and all this other stuff. So it's very like technology versus mythology situation, with the Ten Rings using these very technologically advanced items, and then you have the inverse of it, in which the Talos use dragon scales. So it's very interesting. But when Moon and Shang-Chi fight, it's a little bit difficult at first, but then Shang-Chi like really lets his rage out. And he even says at one point that he is going to kill his father. So it's like, ooh. But he goes and they have a really brutal fight, and he actually beats down his dad pretty well, and I think it's because his dad is holding back. Because in the trailer, there's like the weird part where they do the ring lock thing, and in that scene, it shows both of their reactions to them locking rings, and Wenwu looks more stressed than Shang-Chi does, it was very interesting when I saw that. I was like, I wonder why that is. But yeah, so, and then Wenwu lures him into a false sense of security and fucking like annihilates this dude, and then the Great Protector shows up and saves Shang-Chi because he throws him in the water where the Great Protector lives, and so. Sorry about my creaking chair, by the way. I know I need a new one. But he throws him into the water, and he meets Shang-Chi there. But Wenwu goes over and starts breaking down this giant door, in which a couple of these soul-sucking demons get out. And Xialing is talking to like Razor Fist, who's basically like the commander in this moment, because Death Dealer does not talk. But yeah, so there's literally a moment in which a couple of the soul suckers come over, and Xialing's like, those things are worse than any of us. Like, we need to work together to fight them. We need to quit this. And Razorfist is like, yeah, whatever. And one of them goes to attack Death Dealer. Death Dealer like throws them knives, and they fail to like even connect with it. And then it picks up Death Dealer and sucks out his soul, killing him, which, in my opinion, was kind of a bitch way for Death Dealer to go out. I thought he was going to do a little bit more in this movie, so Death Dealer as a character was a little bit disappointing, not going to lie. And he won't be coming back, which is unfortunate. And then Razor Fist kind of sees the same thing, where he's trying to attack one with his Razor Fist. But then Xialing saves him, and Razor Fist is like tells all the Ten Rings. I was gonna tell. I almost said tell the Mandalorians because I was thinking of Mandarin. But he tells them that they're gonna work together, and so everyone gets outfitted with this stuff, and they sit there and they fight these soul suckers. And then the Great Protector starts helping too, because since it's his scales that kill him, he's just able to go around and eat them and like smack them and stuff like that. And then we get the final intense fight where Shang-Chi fights his father. And earlier on we saw he went to his aunt, Nan, and asked, my mother beat him in combat when he had the 10 rings. Show me how she did it so I can fight him. And he uses those same abilities and stuff like that to combat him, to the point in which 5 of the rings go to Shang-Chi. And so it's this really interesting fight where they're fighting with the rings. Mandarin is like physically having his hand on them. So like it's very interesting how they work. And one of the ways is like he can like literally shoot with them, and he can send them out at people, but he can also basically use them as a whip where they're like electronically. Oops, sorry about that. Where they're like electronically connected, and he can flip them around and stuff like that. And so the Mandarin is exclusively using them while touching them and having them connected to each other, but Shang-Chi is like using his mother's kind of movements to just let them float around him and protect him. And they have this whole fight to where eventually Shang-Chi has all of them, and he starts building them up like he's gonna fucking like Kame. I don't watch Dragon Ball Z, but I know like the Kamehameha thing. He looks like he's gonna do that because he's got the whole all the rings like bundled up in energy in his chest, in his hands. And then he just throws him on the ground. He's like, I'm done with this. Like we can't allow this to keep happening. And it's like it's over. And then this giant soul sucking demon, which literally they in the movie, there's probably an out of universe name for them, but in the movie they do not refer to them as anything else. They just call them like demons and soul suckers. But this big one shows up and almost kills Shang-Chi, and his dad saves him, and then his dad gets his soul sucked, and it's this interesting moment where he just like locks gaze with Shang-Chi, and it goes through this past of moments in which Wenwu was in fact a loving father, because obviously he wasn't the best, training his son to be a killer and everything like that. But it showed that he really cared, just like everyone else who gets their soul sucked out are like writhing in pain and stuff like that. But Wenwu just stares at his son, and it's this very intense moment. And then he officially passes on the 10 rings to Shang-Chi and like puts them on his arms, and then he dies. And so Xialing gets on the Great Protector, and they go to fight this bigger dragon, and Shang-Chi is also jumps onto him, and this big dragon the big dragon known as the Great Protector, the big soul sucker, the great dragon like kind of fucks up the big soul sucker at first, but then it eventually because it's got a bunch of like tentacles and stuff like that, it like wraps up the Great Protector and starts to suck its soul out, and you're like, oh shit. And they even say if it succeeds, then the world is doomed. Basically, it'll have enough power to conquer the universe. And like you can see in its neck is where all the energy is, and Katie, since she has been training with bows and arrows, she shoots it through the neck, and it debilitates it to the point where the Great Protector is able to get away, and Shang-Chi shoots the 10 rings into its mouth, and like using his mother's magic and everything. And then Xialing also gets her licks in. She has like this rope that she's been using that has the dragon scales, and she like throws it and like hooks it around one of the monster's teeth, and then the Great Protector holds it down basically with the rope. Shang-Chi puts in the rings and then like blows it up using its magic. And it's like this, ethereal moment where everyone's like, oh, and don't worry, Trevor Slattery makes it through the whole movie. What's gonna happen with him next? I don't know, dude. But it, then it cuts to them talking to their same friend from the beginning who's overly serious and tells them they need to grow up, and they're telling her this story, and obviously she doesn't believe it. But then, man, myth, and legend, Wong the sorcerer shows up and says, "Are you Shang-Chi?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Do you have the 10 rings still?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "All right, you're coming with me. Bring your friend," meaning Katie. And they even say that Xialing is working on taking down the 10 rings from like the inside, basically like telling them to stop everything. But then it goes to credits after that because they're like, okay, bye, we're gonna go talk to Wong, I guess. But the first end credit scene, like the mid credits scene, is Wong studying the 10 rings, and he's talking with fucking Bruce Banner and Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel is there exclusively to promote her movie, I feel, because she's literally there and she's like, it's not Kree, and then she gets like an alert. She's like, okay, I gotta go, bye. And Bruce is like, she's always got something going on, and I'm like, okay, so that's exclusively promoting that movie is what that is. I'm assuming she left to go do that, which I get it. End credit scenes promote future movies. Do it a little bit differently, guys. Also, you might have noticed that I said Bruce Banner, not Professor Hulk, because he is in fact normal again. which is very interesting. If I remember correct, he's got really long hair for him. We haven't really seen his hair this long. I can't remember if he has a beard or not, but for some reason in my memory he does. And he's also got his arm in the sling. So, I mean, I don't know how long this happened after the snap. Personally, I don't remember. I assume they would have said, and we'll probably in the future when it comes out on DVD, we'll get a fucking estimation of like what it is compared to Endgame and compared to blah 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 blah. But they outright admit that the 10 rings are not vibranium and they're not like Kree or anything that Captain Marvel would know about. And they're like, okay, well, this is weird, and they kind of like analyze them. They use like the magic stuff to kind of like analyze a ring itself. And Bruce Banner even says like, when Shang-Chi specifically used the rings, it basically sent a message. They don't know to who, they don't know why, they don't really know what the message was, but it was a beacon type situation. And Wong even tells Katie and Shang-Chi, he's like, you guys need to go home, you need to sleep. You're in for a wild ride. Congratulations, you're a hero. Your life's gonna be fucked up for the rest of your existence now. And they're just kind of like, ugh. But it was definitely interesting. Now we have some wonderances. I assume people who are more familiar with the comics than I am are going to be like, oh, well, obviously it was calling this. So, who knows? I don't know. And Bruce Banner is also like, good luck. Welcome to being a superhero, which is really cool. I liked seeing him come back. And like I said earlier, Wong was essentially fighting Abomination just so there's a reason for him to show up later, just because it's like, oh, we saw that guy earlier. But yeah, and then the final post-credit scene, which I feel like the post-credits and the mid-credits could have switched, because the post-credits is just Xialing in her old room taking down some of her posters. Razor comes up and is like, okay, they're ready for you. She goes, sits on the throne, taking the exact same position as her father did in his little montage of ruling the world, and it looks exactly the same. And then it ends with saying the 10 rings will return. So obviously she's not taking it down, and I feel like she's going to become a villain of some sort, because she has a lot of resentment to Shang-Chi for essentially leaving her, because when he was sent on this assassination mission after he killed the guy that killed his mother, he's, like I said, he's upset about it. He thinks that his mom would have not approved and would be disappointed in him. So after that moment, he's like, I don't want to live this life anymore, and he runs away. And his sister took that really personally, and it basically makes her mad at him for most of the movie. And so I feel like that's why she's not taking down the 10 rings, is because she's just pissed off at him about leaving her, obviously. But the reason I feel like it could have switched was because it was very lackluster. It's just like, ooh, the 10 rings are still in production. And I'm like, okay. I mean, I would hope so, because they were kind of lackluster in this, not being the final villain and all. But yeah. And I just feel like the big reveal of like, oh, it's a beacon, blah, 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 would have been more interesting. But, they made some decisions. I gotta live with them. I enjoyed the movie overall. And another thing that I want to point out, I should have pointed this out in the spoiler-free review, a lot of native speaking in this. And that's kind of a weird way to phrase that. But they speak Chinese? I don't want to be like offensive with that as someone who doesn't speak those languages. They speak some form of assumably Eastern Asian language, and they put subtitles. Like the entire beginning of the movie is like exclusively subtitles. Like before it says Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, before the title card pops up after the Marvel logo introduction thing, that is entirely subtitled. And there's a lot of subtitles throughout this, and honestly, didn't mind that much. I really liked hearing them speak in their own personal language. I think it is Chinese, because I think someone speaks it to Katie, and Katie goes, my Chinese is terrible. So, I really liked hearing them speak Chinese. It was I feel like it added to the story a little bit, even, if I'm going to be honest. But yeah, Shang-Chi is a very good movie. I recommend seeing it, because listen, I know this is the spoiler part of it, but you gotta be honest. I know that some of you haven't actually seen the movie and you wanted to hear some more details about it before you went and saw it, because I do that sometimes when a new movie comes out. Like, listen, I listened to reviews for the Fast 9 spoiler reviews for the Fast 9 before I watched it. I did the same thing with Black Widow, because sometimes you're like, I don't know, and then you want to hear a spoiler review about it. But that's okay. I'll keep your secret. I'll keep your secret real good. But yeah. And I'm gonna with that being said, I'm gonna have a couple of announcements in terms of these form of videos. I'm gonna get back into doing them a little bit more. I'm not gonna do any full-on podcasts where we talk about movie news or anything like that, because that was more Joe that got that information. And so I'm going to kind of stay away from that until maybe he's able to come back. For those of you who don't know, we quit doing the Hazardous Intent podcast because Joe has a niece that he now has to take care of. His brother and his brother's fiance had a kid, and they're unable to watch it during the day, in which Joe and his sister and his mom and dad do. And they watched it, and at first he was kind of like, oh, like, this is a lot to do for, it not even being his kid, but he likes doing it because he likes his baby. And then basically his like future sister-in-law gave this ultimatum of, like, they found a daycare and they're like, we're either going to exclusively take him to daycare or your guys are going to take care of him every day, which kind of upset Joe's family a little bit, because they're like, well, can't we just do like 50-50? Because they want to see her, obviously, because it's a member of the family. And so Joe just opted into exclusively taking care of her, and so he's busy with that. So with, baby troubles and stuff, it's hard to schedule around that and everything. But in terms of the future, I'm going to keep doing these podcast-like reviews by myself. Hopefully it wasn't too boring. Maybe I'll bring in some other people to review it. I know I have a different friend who has listened to my podcast before and has expressed interest in like Discording in for these reviews and stuff like that. So that might be something that we do. But I will be doing more of these. I actually have a couple more planned already because I have been watching a lot more movies lately. And I plan to just do reviews for movies no matter how long. I have seen Reminiscence, Protege, and Jungle Cruise. I know Jungle Cruise is a little bit old, and Reminiscence and Protege are not the most popular things, but I'm going to do little reviews for those. Those will probably not be as long, especially since I probably won't remember them too well, but I'm going to keep doing some reviews. And on the coming weeks to Spider-Man No Way Home, I'm going to rewatch and review the first 7 Spider-Man movies, the Raimi trilogy, the Garfield duo, and then the previous Tom Holland installments. I'm going to rewatch all those since, there's the rumors of Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire coming up. Don't be like, it's a fact. Calm down. Okay, the movie's not out yet. I know there's leaked images, blah, blah, blah. I'm not denying it. I'm just saying there's rumors. No one's officially said anything, so until someone officially says something, I'm not going to say that they are for sure in it. But yeah, so leading up to that, I'm going to rewatch those movies. Maybe Joe will be able to join in a little bit. Maybe I'll have a little segment where me and him just talk for 10 minutes, because I know I have yet to ask him if he wants to watch those with me. But if I do a rewatch with him, I'll try and have like a 10-minute conversation with him for each movie, and maybe just segment that in at the end of each of the reviews for those Spider-Man movies. But yeah, on the coming weeks to that. And these podcasts are not going to be like weekly or anything. It's just going to be whenever I record them and upload them. So there's no real formula to it. I also have to do Candyman, because I saw that recently. So I've got a few I got to do. I'm not going to release them all at once, obviously. I'm going to bank a couple up and maybe release them. With the rate I'm seeing movies right now, maybe 2 a week might be the best idea. But who knows? Yeah, just thought I'd leave that little update. Go ahead and follow me on Twitch. I've been streaming semi-consistently for the past couple months. I started off streaming 3 things a week to 2 things a week, and then I beat one of the things that I was streaming, and so now it's 1 thing a week. and I'm going to try and start streaming some more stuff on Twitch under Zombie Hater 92. Link might be in the description, depends on how lazy I am. Also follow me on TikTok. There will not be a link for that, but it is confirmed to be Zombie Hater 92 on TikTok. I do reviews for action figures. I do small 3-minute reviews for movies and other stuff, and sometimes I do some skits. So yeah, if you're interested and you like this review, go to follow one of those things. Leave a like, subscribe, share with your friends, all that good stuff. But until the next time I see you guys, or I guess till the next time you hear my voice, have a good one. Have a great day.